Yearning. Is it a lost art? She knows how to write a male main character who yearns. I am so serious. I'm so serious. The best story as well that hits you right in the gut. I need a moment. Hello, my fellow readers and friends. My name is Nellie. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I love to read and I love to yap about what I read, and I read an insane amount. Today, I wanted to talk about something that has been on my mind so much, something that I feel like I am literally chasing in every fantasy romance or romance book that I pick up, or even book with a romantic subplot. It is the reason I fell in love with reading as a young girl, and that is yearning. I feel like as an adult, it has been a lot harder for me to find books with true yearning on either side. And I think it's because when you move into the adult genre, a lot of times because more spice can be written, it's at the expense of yearning. It's at the expense of romantic relational development. And that for me is my bread and butter. That for me is my favorite part of the story. It's two people that haven't quite worked out how they're going to be together yet, but they have just this love or this desire to be with the other person. Even if it's one-sided, on the male's perspective, I still eat that up. So if you're like me and you've been looking for more books that have true yearning in it, then this is the video for you. I went through my shelves and I picked up 10 books that I feel like do a good example of having a character who yearns, and it really just is interwoven throughout the whole story and just keeps you going, flipping pages until you get to the end. And while you're doing that, squealing, kicking your feet, all the things you do when a book has really, really good yearning. In this stack, I've got some contemporary romance, some fantasy, and some historical ones, but I really did try to include some books that you might not have read yet that I think you'll love if you're looking for some good yearning. The first book I want to start with is actually kind of an author recommendation, and I'll talk about her first and then talk about the book that we're going to be talking about, but that is Rebecca Ross. Rebecca Ross, I feel like, is most known for Divine Rivals and most recently Wild Reverence. Both of these books, which are within the same universe and the same world, are really incredible examples of yearning, of two characters who there's a reason that they can't be together. And in both of these books, a lot of the yearning can be felt through letters that are written or have some aspect of letter writing, which I think is like a really, really good thing to look for. I feel like generally when we have a character that's writing letters or writing notes to the other person, we're gonna get some yearning in that. But the book that I actually wanted to talk about by Rebecca Ross is one that I feel like isn't as talked about, and that is The Elements of Cadence duology, the first one being A River Enchanted. This book is so beautiful, so magical, so lush, and to the point of this video, it includes two incredible love stories that both just have incredible notes of yearning. To give you a little bit of summary about this book, we have one of our main characters who is a bard, and he has since left the Scottish Isle that he grew up on. He's being called back by the laird, and when he comes back to the island, he realizes that young girls are going missing. They have called him back because bards have been a really big element in communicating with the fae spirits of the isle, and they want to ask the fae spirits for help to figure out who is taking these young girls. And our male main character has a very personal stake in this because he has a very young sister that he learns that he has when he comes back to the island. Now, like I said, in this we have two different romances going on. We have a relationship between the bard and the laird's daughter, and then we also have one that is my personal favorite, and that is between, I believe he's like a captain. I forget exactly what the terminology is, but he is some type of captain who is in charge of protecting this people from the people who live on the west side of the isle. He had lost his wife when his baby was young and remarried kind of because of that to give his daughter a mother. And the love story between him and his now wife, who is the healer, who plays a really important role in this story, is so beautiful because we have two people who know the reason why they're together. They're together to give this daughter a mother, especially while he has this profession being this captain. Somebody needs to be home with the girl. And yet, even though they know that's kind of the real reason why they're together, they both have developed just such a deep love for each other, but they're both on the side of thinking that the other person is just having them there because of that purpose, to give the daughter a mother. These love stories are so beautiful, and it's just in the way that Rebecca Ross writes. I'm going to keep saying beautiful, but she writes these stories in such a beautiful way, and just the notes of love between these characters are so deep, so intimate, and just feel so special as you're reading. You just will fall in love with these characters, and you're rooting for them in their love stories, even though there are certain things that are kind of standing in the way of both of these couples. And on top of that, the mystery is very, very interesting as well as to who is taking these young girls. I haven't finished this duology yet, but it is one I'm really excited to finish because of how much fun I had with this. And I do want to note that the audiobook for this is really great. It really puts you in the atmosphere because the audiobook narrator also has a Scottish accent. She just does a really, really good job at making you feel like you're on this foggy, mystical isle with all these magical things happening. The next book that I want to recommend to you is a contemporary romance, and this author, I believe, writes no spice. So if you're somebody who's looking for a book that has less spice, then this will be a good one for you. And you've probably already heard about this author, but she is a new to me author, and so I wanted to mention her because I'm fresh out of one of her books. And the book that I'm going to mention is Happiness for Beginners by Catherine Center. I recently thrifted 2 of her books, and I pretty much read them back to back because I had a great time with them. This one is definitely my favorite of the 2 that I've read, and in this book, we have an older protagonist, which I really like. And when I say older, she's only 32, but I like having a more mature protagonist in my books personally, just because I feel like I relate to it more. I also feel like the problems in books feel more real life and bigger when it is an older protagonist. We're not like facing issues that are just solely based off of immaturity most of the time. But my favorite thing about this book specifically was the yearning of the male main character. Pretty much from page 1, when both of our characters are introduced, you realize that our male main character has loved our female main character for a long time. In this book, we have our female main character, Helen, and she's 32. She's coming off of a divorce, and she's very much a pessimist. She has had a hard life, and she notices the hard things that are happening in her life, if that makes sense. She ends up booking this wilderness retreat that's supposed to be really, really hard. It's like 3 weeks, sleeping on the floor, just a backpack, no toilets. You and your group are pretty much just isolated from everything, and she thinks that she's going to find a better version of herself on this wilderness retreat. And right at the beginning of this, she has this interaction with her brother's best friend, who her brother's best friend has been there pretty much her entire marriage. I believe the first time he even saw her was on her wedding day, and there is quite a bit of an age difference. I want to say a few years, definitely at least, and she has always seen him as the annoying friend of her annoying kid brother. To be honest, our female main character is kind of hard to like. As you read this story, you have a lot of empathy for her, but just her reactions and the way that she chooses to see the world can be kind of frustrating, honestly. And what keeps you going is the male main character. Like I said, our MMC in this has been in love with her since he first saw her. His name is Jake, and throughout this story, you can really feel that. One of my favorite things about it is the little touches of her walking into a room, and there's little things that happen, like he will just stop in his tracks, or like his mouth will fall open, or his eyes will widen, or she'll even come closer to him and his breath hitches, and all of these little things that happen throughout the book. For me, it was just such a great picture of a male main character who really, really yearns for our female main character, is able to see past her flaws, of which there are many in this book, and is so patient with her. And also in his mind, he's also thinking she will never go for me, but yet he's still always there. He almost can't help himself because of how in love with her he is. I don't want to say much more, but obviously you can see the parts I annotated. Pretty much all the parts I annotated are little moments between the 2 of them that I really, really loved. I just really, really, really loved him in this book. It's made me really excited to read a few more of her books. I know she has a new release, I think it's called The Shippers, coming out this month in March as well. Next, I wanted to talk about a fantasy series. This is not a new fantasy series. It's been around for a while, and if you follow Emmy's channel, she talks about this series a lot, and it has brought it back on my map. I originally read most of the books right when they came out, and I kind of forgot about them, and so it's been really fun to get back into them. And that is, of course, the Shadowhunters universe by Cassandra Clare, but the one specifically that I wanted to mention today is The Dark Artifices by Cassandra Clare. It's a series that I am almost done with. It's actually a reread for me, and it's a series that I just annotated within an inch of its life. I think that the writing in here is so beautiful, and it has one of the best expressions of yearning. I obviously want to mention first that my favorite trilogy within this universe that also has great examples of yearning is The Infernal Devices, but I do feel like there's a lot of talk about that trilogy, so I wanted to give The Dark Artifices their due. The reason why the yearning is so good in this is because our main couple, and I say our main couple because Cassandra Clare does a really good job at letting you follow the friends and the people that surround our main two characters. So there are other things going on, and I feel like there's other notes of yearning in the other couples as well. But specifically with our main two characters, we have Emma and Julian. They're forbidden by their society from ever falling in love. They made a decision very young to enter into this partnership with each other, which in this world, this specific kind of partnership is called parabatai. You are kind of like magically bound together, and once you have a partner like this, runes that they draw on your skin are stronger than ones you could ever draw on your own. You're stronger together. You have certain abilities that other people don't have, and they made this choice very, very young because they both had their own trauma and they wanted to be tied to their best friend and make sure that they were never separated. And at the beginning of this series, they're in their older teens. I want to say they're about 17, and they already know within themselves, because they haven't told each other and it is a mystery to each other, but this is not a spoiler, that they are in love with each other. And it's very difficult because what if the one person that you knew was right for you, the one person who is the other half of your soul, you were forbidden to be with? The consequences for falling in love with your parabatai and acting on it are that you were essentially thrust away from your society. You're not able to use runes anymore, so you don't have the access to the magic. You have to live like a normal human being. Julian, our male main character, is in charge of his younger siblings. He's the guardian for them, and his siblings and him have already had their two oldest siblings taken away from them. So the circumstances are dire. There is very high stakes in this, and because they're required to stay away from each other, we just get the most delicious notes of yearning on both of their sides, and they're little things that you can miss if you're really not paying attention. Again, about the way that his breath hitches when she takes her hair down, or with the way that she sees him in a way that nobody else does. And one of my favorite things in this trilogy in particular is they, as best friends, have almost like this little language they speak with each other, which is that if they want to speak to each other and other people are around, they essentially draw letters on each other's skin, and it just adds this layer of intimacy that is so beautiful throughout this series. And Cassandra Clare uses that in such a good, specific, intentional way that when they do it, it really has such an impact on you. Oh, I just love this series. I am rereading the last book in this trilogy right now, and I'm just dying. I know it's gonna break my heart, and I know I'm gonna it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. I am going to sprinkle in some authors that you know about if you've ever been on BookTube, just because they are my favorite. So I'm gonna try to talk about a lesser known book of this next author who is very well known. But I recently did a reread. I'm in my rereading era just because I'm searching for this yearning, and sometimes you just gotta go back to your favorite books. But I recently did a reread of one of Ali Hazelwood's books, and I personally feel that Ali Hazelwood, she does such a great job at it, at writing these male main characters who have been quietly in love with the female main characters, and our female main characters are totally in the dark, and she's pretty good at keeping you as the reader in the dark as well. If you're not noticing these little touches, then you'll miss it and be totally surprised, and you're like, wait, he loved her this whole time. But going back and rereading and knowing the outcome of these books, I can see the yearning all throughout it. That's kind of why I love annotating books, because I really feel like then you can, when you know you're going to annotate a book, I feel like you're just more detail oriented. But anyways, I need to talk about the book that I'm actually going to talk to you about today, and that is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I reread The Love Hypothesis last year, and I do think if I was going to recommend one for you to read, I'd probably recommend that one, because the movie adaptation is coming out later this year, I believe, and so I would just recommend that just because you should read it before it comes out. But this one in particular, I wanted to mention also with Yearning, because in this book, we have our female main character, Elsie Hanaway, and she is a physics adjunct professor. And the position that she's in, if you're not on the tenure track or have a really good job in her field, you're not making very much money at all. And the problem is that Elsie, she has type 1 diabetes and she doesn't have insurance through her work. So she needs to make money to be able to basically live. And so what she does on the side is she is essentially kind of like an escort, and not in the way that you're thinking. More so, there's this app that exists in this book that if you need a date to a wedding, or if you need to bring somebody home to your family because your family will be so disappointed or horrible if you come single again, then you can find somebody on this app to take with you. And that's what Elsie does. And she's really good at her job because she is a massive people pleaser. And so she's really good at reading a room and reading the person that they need her to be. So for example, if you bring her with you to her family, she's really good at reading, what the kind of girlfriend her date's mother wants, and she can mirror that really well. She has a repeat person that she goes out with multiple times, and that is because she's created a great friendship with him and she really, really feels bad for him. This person so happens to be Greg, and Greg's older brother happens to be Jack. And ever since the first time Greg brought her around his family, she has felt like Jack has just been laser focused on her and just very suspicious of her almost. He's constantly asking her questions and kind of, it almost seems like just protecting his brother, making sure that she's there with good intentions. And obviously to Greg's family, she is not a physicist because she is whatever she thinks will be best for this family. So they think she is like a children's librarian, but she ends up interviewing for this job that she really wants, she really needs. And one of the people in their interviews is Jack, because he is somebody big in the physics world as well. Obviously, this is really bad because now Jack thinks that Elsie's been lying and all of these different things. And so anyways, I won't tell you too much more from there, but this book kind of covers her interview process and teaching some classes, trying to get this job, and Jack not wanting her to get this job, and him also just thinking that she's a liar. However, throughout all of this, there is just the best yearning in this coming from our male main character, Jack. And I'm not going to say a ton more than that because I don't want to spoil it. But what I like about Jack is when our characters get to a point of better communication, he's very upfront about his feelings. And not only does it make past experiences much more clear for the reader of how he was actually yearning for her, but also it is so nice to read a male main character who says how much he wants our female main character, and he's just consistent with that throughout, and I really, really appreciated that. This is not a perfect book, but through that lens, it became a book that I really, really loved and, again, enjoy rereading. All right, next I'm going to move into a dystopian fantasy romance. And with this one, you just kind of gotta follow me. We're talking about yearning. We're not talking about how excellent writing was at this point, okay? But I have to mention the Shatter Me series. I personally think that Shatter Me never should have had books 4, 5, and 6. We should have ended after the third one. So let's just ignore the fact that those exist. And specifically in the second and third books, I need a moment. The thing about Tahara Mafi is, again, the writing in the early stages of this series, and honestly the last part too, might not have been the best, but where she really shines and what she does better than almost any other writer that I know is yearning. She knows how to write a male main character who yearns. And that right there is what keeps me rereading those first 3 books, even if they're not perfect, even if the female main character drives me up the wall. It is specifically the yearning of our male main character. If you've ever been on Book Talk, if you've ever been on BookTube, you've heard about Aaron Warner. You've seen how he's made the top 5 of so many people's like top MMCs. And it's because of that. It is because of the way that she writes his character, who will literally do anything, be anything to be with Juliet. There are no lines that our male main character would not cross. And as you read this series, you kind of realize why he is the way that he is. I realize I haven't really told you about what this is about. I'm assuming that you know what it's about, but if you don't, it's about our female main character whose touch is lethal. It's deadly. In this world, she's been kind of like locked in a prison with no human interaction, really, no physical touch ever. And this story is her breaking out of that and also kind of going against the system. It is definitely a rebellion type story. But there is a male main character in here, which you really, really, really get introduced to in the second and third book. And his name is Aaron Warner. And let me tell you, there is no yearning like Aaron Warner's yearning. There is just none. And I just can't really even say more to you than that if you want just a good fun time, but also something that you'll be shocked with, like the yearning that straight up punches you in the gut, this is the series. Read books 1, 2, and 3, and then forget the other ones exist, okay? Just take my word for it. The next book I'm going to talk about, I've actually never heard anybody talk about this book, and the only reason why it became on my radar is because one of my friends picked it for our local book club. This is another no spice romance, and it's a historical romance, and it's Blackmore by Julianne Donaldson. And this book, it was such a pleasant surprise. I honestly was not interested in reading it when I saw what was picked, but personally, I will always read a book that people pick for my book club. I just always want to be an active participant, so I read it. And let me tell you, I had such a freaking good time with this. In this book, we have our female main character, Kate Worthington. And to be honest, I really think you shouldn't read the back of the book because the first sentence is a spoiler. Personally, I think you should just go straight into it based off of what I am about to tell you. So our female main character, Kate, she lives, I believe this is Regency time, and she does not want to be married. She wants to instead go and travel the world with her aunt, who is also single and gets to live the life of her dreams. And Kate's mom is very, very staunchly against this. She wants her to get married. That is all she cares about. And her daughter, Kate, have a not great relationship because, to be honest, Kate's mom sucks. She is somebody who is very flirty with other people in a very crass way, and it is basically scandalous. Everyone around them talks about her mom and the way that her mom has acted and the way that her older sister basically almost ruined herself in following her mom's footsteps, and Kate just knows she does not want to be like her, and so she has decided she doesn't want to get married. She wants nothing to do with men. She doesn't want to become like her mom, but obviously her mom is a huge roadblock in this. Kate has 2 best friends that are siblings, Henry and Sylvia, and she has always dreaded summers when, for a month, I believe, Henry and Sylvia go away to Blackmore, which is this estate that Henry one day is going to inherit when his grandpa passes. She has never been invited to go just because Henry and Sylvia's mom do not like Kate's mom for obvious reasons. And so this is the first time ever that she has been invited to go. She's really excited to go, especially to spend more time with Henry before he gets engaged because they're best friends. And obviously they're probably not going to have a relationship after that. It's been a lifelong goal of Kate's to go to Blackmore, not just to not be left behind by her friends, but when they come home and tell her about Blackmore, she's pretty much fallen in love with it. To a point that Henry gifted her one time this model of the Blackmore estate, and she just loves it. She's always wanted to go. However, Kate's mom says that she is not allowed to go, on top of not being allowed to go to India. And Kate basically says, I will give you anything, literally anything, if you let me go. And her mom says, okay, well, while you're in Blackmore, which I think she's there for like 2 weeks or something crazy, like a short amount of time, you need to secure and reject 3 proposals. And if that happens, I will know you at least tried, and then I will accept that you're a lost cause and you can go do whatever the heck you want. But if you don't do that, then you have to do what I tell you when you come home. When Kate gets to Blackmore, she realizes it's going to be harder than she thought, especially because even people over there know of her mom's reputation. And so she has this great idea that she will have Henry, her best friend, propose to her 3 times and she'll reject him and then leave. Well, that's all well and good, except for the fact that you as the reader, as you're reading, might start to understand that Henry might have some feelings behind these proposals. And that's all I'm gonna say. The yearning in this book, I loved it. I loved it. Like, is it a masterpiece of a novel? Perhaps not. But the yearning in this was so, so good. You fall so in love with Henry, her best friend, and you're just rooting for Kate as well. And I just think that this is a really good time. I think this would make a great palate cleanser, and it will just, again, surprise you at how much yearning is in this book. And I just had a great time reading it. I already want to read another book by this author. I guess her most popular book is called Edenbrook. I haven't read that. But yeah, I had a good time with this, and I would definitely read another book by her. Going into some fantasy, I have talked about this book a lot, but you know what? I'm not going to stop talking about it because it's that good. I know if you've been on my channel before, you're like, Nellie, stop talking about this book. I can't. I just love it. The next book we're going to talk about is The Second Death of Locke by V.L. Bovalino. When I tell you guys, I will be camped outside of the Barnes & Noble for when book 2 in the series comes out. I am so serious. I'm so serious. You guys are going to be sick of me. You're going to be sick of me, and I'm sorry. But I have to mention this book again because the yearning in this book, top tier. Top tier. Is this like maybe my number 1 in this whole stack? I don't know. But this is so, so good. And the reason being is, again, we have another forbidden love type setting, which I feel like sets up yearning so, so well. If you have forbidden love or some type of forbidden relationship in a book, I feel like it's just, again, you're just set up for good yearning. And in this book, we have mages and we have wells, and they are paired together platonically to be able to battle better. Mages are able to access their wells' magic. Wells naturally have a source of magic that they hold within them, but they can't really access that. They basically are paired with a mage, and through this relationship, the mage uses the magic and the well is trained as a soldier to protect the mage so they can continue to wield the magic. We are following Gray and Kier. This is told in Gray's perspective, who is the female, basically a lady knight, and she protects her mage Kier, and they've known each other since they were children. And the intimacy that comes from that, it will just have you literally sweating. What I loved about this book is it is not lust forward, but the tension is so incredible. We know from the get-go that Gray has this deep love for Kier. Like, yes, deep love as a friend, but also she's in love with him. Obviously, we're not in Kier's perspective, but we get these little moments, even in their friendship, where there's just like the touch of a hand, or one of them is like crinkling their head because they're having a headache, and the other person notices that immediately and goes to do something to remedy that. And it's just like these things, these intimacies that only come from knowing someone so deeply. And that is what makes this book, this story, really just leap off the page and makes you so tangibly feel the yearning in this book. We have our female main character who has this male main character that takes care of her so well, and she's in love with him. And so you can see in those moments where like he is helping her because she's got an ache or a pain, and she's just like feeling this immense love for this person who cares for her so deeply, but she also doesn't know how he feels, and she also knows that even if he felt some type of way, they wouldn't be allowed to have a relationship. There's so much more at stake in this story as well, but where this book for me really truly shines is the yearning. It is so incredible. I'm still in love with Kier. I still love him. I love their relationship, and this is just a story that I will literally recommend to anybody. Drink break. The next one we're going to move into is another contemporary romance, but this one incorporates magical realism, and you're probably already thinking of who I'm talking about, but I have to mention this author. I do, and I have to mention this book because it is one of my favorite romances ever, and that is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. If you have not read this book, girl, what are you doing? It is so so good. Essentially, we have a relationship across time in this. We have our female main character who's dealing with grief, dealing with the loss of her beloved aunt, and her aunt left her this apartment and always told her that this apartment like slipped through time. She never believed it until she comes in and someone else is living in this apartment. And it turns out he is 7 years in the past. And so throughout this story, she is getting to know this person not only in the past, but also he is part of her life in the present. And the yearning that comes with that, the yearning that comes with an individual who has waited for you and who sees you in the present and knows that you don't know who he is. I can't. I need a moment. Truthfully, I need a moment. This book is so beautiful. These characters, I fell in love with them, especially Ewan, who is our male main character. I just can't. I can't. Like, I already even talking about this book, I'm like, I need to reread it immediately. It is so good. I love a story about like a star-crossed love, lovers in another time, something that's separating them, and this book is one of the finest at it. It is seriously so good, and I think for me, just the way that the male main character takes care of our female main character and how patient he is with her because she is really going through it in this book is just something that's so special. There's just a magic in this book. There really is just a magic in this book. I think I'm going to save one of my favorites for last. So the next one I'm going to move into is another one that I love. It's another contemporary romance, and it's also got magical realism in it. If you watched my recent book recommendations video, you have heard about this book, and I'm just going to talk about it again because I loved it so much. But that is One and Only by Maureen Gu. We have our female main character who comes from a long line of matchmakers. They practice this specific art that is from Korea. It's called face reading, and basically by looking at you, looking at your face, it's kind of like reading a hand. They can see glimpses of your past lives and your love in those past lives, and they can help you track down that person, that one person that is meant for you. I loved this. This book was such a breath of fresh air because it really makes you think about soulmates, and personally, as someone who doesn't subscribe to that concept, I loved this book. I loved the idea of our female main character who knows by name the person she's supposed to fall in love with. She just hasn't met him yet, and then has somebody else just stumble into her life. This kind of question of not only just do soulmates exist, but are they the right person for who you are right now? It's so fun. And I also love in this book, the person that she basically stumbles on, crashes into, is younger than her. And I just can't talk about Ellis enough. His name is Ellis, and he is just the most perfect human being on the planet. I love him so much. He is just a golden retriever. He automatically has such an attraction to her, and she's just kind of like, oh, you're too young. You're like 10 years younger than me. You're too young. You're too young. You're too young. And she's just pushing him away. But honestly, life is still throwing them together, almost like fate is still throwing them together. And one day when she finally just is like, you know what, we should go on a date, and they have like their night together, the next morning she ends up meeting his boss, and his boss is the person that she has been fated to be with, the person that she's been looking for her whole life. And so things just ensue from there. We have our female main character who is really just struggling with this concept of finally finding the person that you are meant to be with and is supposed to be your perfect other half. And then we have this other beautiful gem of an MMC who is seeming to be like he's everything you need and want right now. And what a difficult decision that is. What a difficult decision it really would be to know without a shadow of a doubt who the person is that is supposed to be your soulmate. So she's navigating that, and she really just has so much growth throughout this story. But for me, obviously the reason I put this on the list is the yearning, because Ellis throughout this story kind of has to stand on the sidelines while she pursues her quote-unquote soulmate. And oh man, it just, your heart breaks for him because he just like loves her so much. He like thinks that she is everything, and he's having to watch with a front row seat this other relationship happening. And oh, it just kills me. And just the yearning is just, it just hits you right in the heartstrings. It really does. The last book that I wanted to mention is a book that I love so so much, and I fear I haven't talked about it enough since I read it. I realized I didn't even like rate it on Goodreads or write a review about it, and so now's my time. And the last book that I'm going to mention and recommend to you is Lovely War by Julie Berry. This book was so good. So good. And I'm literally like blanking in my mind right now because I love this book so much, and I'm like, how do I do this justice? How do I do this justice? The best way that I would describe this is if you want a book with the most incredible yearning, the sweetest characters, the best story as well that hits you right in the gut, then you really should read this book. This is a historical fiction slash fantasy slash romance, and essentially in this book we have a few narrators, and the narrators are Greek gods or goddesses. We have Aphrodite, who is on trial by her husband for being quote unquote unfaithful, and she has never felt seen by her husband, and that's kind of what's led to her infidelity. She's never felt like he's appreciated what her job and her purpose for her life really is, which is obviously love. And so she tells a story to her husband and to her love about why love is so important and how it conquers all, and just again how it's the most important and powerful force in the world. And she tells two different love stories that happened during World War II that are so beautiful and will just touch your heart in the most incredible way. And we have one couple who meets right before the male main character ships off to war. They just have this moment, and we're seeing it through the eyes of like these people looking in on these two people having their first meeting, and the way that they think about each other and how they fall so hard, and they know that he's going to leave and he might not come back from war because obviously it's really, really dangerous. And we follow each of these characters as they separate, and then later these two other characters who are interwoven into our main two characters' lives and their story, which almost seems even more impossible. And just, it's so good. It's so good. We're following before they go into the war, and then our female main character, how she ends up volunteering to be a part of, I think it's like the Red Cross or something like that, just to have some type of a connection to James, who is somewhere serving in the war. And then we follow them throughout the war, and then we follow them when they come home and the struggles that James faces once he's home from the war. And just the love story, it's told so well, and I know I'm not doing it justice, you guys, but it's seriously so good. Like, I beg you to read this. If you're a historical fiction lover who is new to fantasy and wants to try it, try this. If you're a fantasy romance lover who is new to historical fiction, try this. If you are a romance lover who's just looking for the most beautiful love stories that will imprint themselves on your heart, you will love this. It is so tender, it is so intimate, and I think what's really interesting is depending on who is telling this part of the story, you get certain notes. For example, if Aphrodite's telling this part of the story, then you're really seeing the yearning, you're really seeing the love. If Hades is called in as a witness and is going to tell the story, you know someone's going to pass, and so you're on the edge of your seat. But also the way Hades talks about being the shepherd of souls into the afterlife is also so beautiful. And then, you know, if the god of war is going to talk, then we're going to talk about a little bit more of what's happening during this time period. And it's just so well balanced between genres. But where this book really truly shines, if I could just like come through the camera and say, read this book, it is so incredible with the yearning and the love stories. These love stories will touch you and they will stay with you for so long. I just think this is a book that can be recommended to anybody, no matter what they read, and it will have an impact on them. Just grade A yearning, guys. Just grade A yearning. That does bring me to the end of this book recommendation video. If you have been looking for books with yearning, I hope that you have gotten a book or two to add to your TBR. And if you have any books that I have not mentioned that you think that I or anybody else watching this video who is looking for books with yearning would love, please drop them in my comments below. If you stayed all the way to the end of this video, you are a real one. Please leave me a little rose emoji so I know who stayed to the end of this video. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider staying a while and subscribing. I would love to have you here as part of my little community. Feel free to binge any other videos on my channel while you're here. And that is going to be it. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!